South Africa celebrates Women's Month each year to remember the more than 20,000 women who marched against the apartheid government's passed laws in 1956. This year, the month is celebrated under the theme Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Rights for an Equal Future. The month is also used to highlight advancements made to the development of women and to pay tribute to women who are breaking boundaries in different sectors. One such woman is University of Cape Town's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. She took some time to chat with the SABC. Professor, thank you so much for availing yourself. 2020 has been a difficult year because of the coronavirus pandemic. So, what does being a Vice-Chancellor of a university during the coronavirus pandemic mean? And what challenges have you faced in your role?
The biggest challenge is the challenge of uncertainty. A pandemic where a vaccine is not yet found. You don't really know how it's going to behave tomorrow, next week, next month. So you make decisions as you go along. And some of those decisions might have to change. For example, we moved from level 3 to level 2. We've made decisions about which students come back to campus, who we send letters to. We've got to rework all of that because level 2 means that we can bring more students on campus. But it also uncertainty in terms of, so how do you proceed in terms of the academic program? We want to complete academic year 2020. We make decisions in terms of how the second semester is going to go along. Many of those decisions have to be approved by Senate. Some have to be approved by Council, which doesn't meet every day. And so as the pandemic changes, the situation changes, you've got to make decisions and then you've got to get approvals. And it may be that as soon as you get approval, the ground shifts and then you've got to change again. So it's the uncertainty that's a big challenge.
How have students and staff been affected?
The big challenge is the one regarding staff and students is health and safety. With the lockdown being downgraded to level 2, people have to come back to campus, staff and students. First of all, when we bring students back, it necessitates bringing staff back. And bringing people back, you've got to make sure that the environment is safe. That's not just about sanitizing the place and providing sanitizers. It's also making sure that there aren't people who come in infected and end up infecting other people. So organizing sites for quarantining and then changing the rules, for example, of residences to make sure that students' movements are regulated and physical distancing is observed so that we can manage the spread of the virus. That's a big challenge because, we are not a place like that where people are not supposed to have contact. And in this case, we've got to curb contact. And so we keep managing that day to day. That big challenge is the one of when we lose people. I mean, we've had people who passed on because of COVID or because of COVID-related diseases. And that's a difficult thing because at one level, you're focusing on completing the academic year. The second level, you're focusing on ensuring that people are healthy and safe and can come to campus and know that they are protected. At another level, you've got to work with people who are affected by losing loved ones to COVID-related diseases. The mood is low. Some people who haven't lost lives are sitting with people who are very ill and facing a possibility. And that's a challenge. So how do we keep the campus mood positive and keep people energized in the context of all these challenges that have come with the pandemic? You see, it's easy to migrate people to working from home, but dealing with these kinds of uncertainties that affect people's lives is much more difficult.
The 2020 matric class has faced a lot of difficulties in learning because of the lockdown. Some will be coming to the University of Cape Town, and I assume that it might be difficult for them to adjust because of the time that has been lost. What are some of the measures, if any, that will be put in place to ensure that they make it past first year?
Times of crisis we always think about the danger. And the danger, of course, when it comes to matric class of 2020 is that they will come to university unprepared. But you also have to think about opportunity, because that's what crisis does. It presents you with both danger and opportunity. So the danger is very well known. It's very easy for people to talk about the danger. Students will be unprepared. How do you make sure? And I'll talk to that. But the opportunity is that students actually might come a little differently and maybe better prepared than students before, because they've spent the year 2020 having to figure out learning on their own or connecting with a teacher online if they're lucky. They would have had to go through the year without much mediation by the teachers, which is something that they're going to have to learn to discipline themselves, to get focused, irrespective of what happens in the environment. That's not a downside. That's an opportunity. We've got to think about, how do we magnify that? How do we draw on that? But how are we dealing with the danger as UCT? We are aware that some students might come underprepared, and we're planning to use the national benchmark tests to use them to understand where students are at when they come to UCT, so that we can actually know what the gaps are and how we deal with them. The national benchmark tests will give us a sense of that, as to where the gaps are, and then we can come up with strategies on how to deal with that. That's why we said we are not using the national benchmark test for acceptance, right? But once you hear those who haven't written the NBTs, we're going to give them an opportunity to write the NBT, because we want to use that to be able to attend proactively to the challenges in their knowledge that the benchmark test will show us, rather than wait until they don't do well and then we want to attend to it. So that's at the moment what we are preparing to do in terms of the first year of 2021.
Let's talk about the Mamokgethi Phakeng scholarship. Tell me a little bit about it, and what made you decide to contribute the 10% of your salary towards it?
I am committed to gender equality. You cannot say you're committed to gender equality and make it only lip service. I am putting my resources into that commitment. I need the 10%, but I'm going to deny myself that 10% of my salary to give to the Mamokgethi Phakeng scholarship. Of course, I'm a Christian, so the 10%, if you ask, how did I choose 10%? Well, it's the 10th of my earnings, as instructed in the Bible, because I'm a Christian. What that does, gives us an opportunity to support women postgraduate students, some of whom may be academics, and who knows, it is possible that one of those that we support may end up being a professor, may end up being a VC, and they can remember that the person who gave them an opportunity is someone who walked the journey. It serves as inspiration, it serves as challenge, but it's a way of contributing to a cause that I believe in wholeheartedly. So far, we've given the scholarship to 2 students. We only considered the first applicants in 2019. We're going to consider the second batch this year. They get full support, residence, tuition, and living allowance. I have to earn the money to contribute to them to do that. The 2 students who got the scholarship are here at UCT. They are both in the Faculty of Science. Students don't have to be in the Faculty of Science. They can be in any discipline as long as they're women, they are Black, African, or colored, and they are doing postgraduate studies.
There's also Adopt Elena. How does it work and how did it come about?
Adopt Elena, I started it in 2004. This is after I discovered in 2003 that I was the first Black South African woman to get a PhD in mathematics education. I got my PhD in 2002. In 2003, I won the award for the most outstanding Black female researcher in the country, and that was for my PhD. When they read the citation, they mentioned that I was the first Black South African woman to get this PhD. I thought it was disastrous, and I thought the country has got a right 10 years later to ask me, are you still the only one? And I thought I should do something about it. And so I started in 2004, I started Adopt Elena. Basically, I started Adopt Elena to make sure that I am not the last. I started by supporting students at high school. I started at the school that I went to, the middle school that I went to in Garankuwa, my township. And when the government introduced fee-free schools, I then went to university because some of those students were already going to university. Dr. Elena focuses on supporting students who obtain their matric from township or rural areas. You have to have gone to a village school or a township school to get support through a Dr. Elena. It's not about results. It's about survivors. Survivors, people who don't have a choice. Like me, they went to a village school or a township school and they did their matrics there and they still passed. They don't have to have distinctions. All we want in a Dr. Elena is students with potential and passion for what they want to do. And I believe that with potential and passion, you can get success. And over the years, since we started, we've produced success. Some of the students that we've supported are nurses. We've got a nurse. We've got students who are doing masters, completing masters in data science. We've got students who did IT and they're working. Some of them are married. We've got one who did food technology. The students are all over the country. Some are at UNISA, some went to VETS, some UJ, UP, and a nursing college in Pretoria, TUT. We've got one student that we've supported at UCT, but they're all over the country. And a Dr. Elena adopts a very different way of support. First of all, I don't raise funds. I work for the money. When I get invited to speak over the years, I've asked that the money gets donated to a Dr. Elena. The students are given support, registration, accommodation, monthly stipend, a laptop. Of course, they're different. Many of them don't have parents. They live in RDP houses, which were owned by their parents, and they live alone. We don't have a lot of money, and so they work as a community. Some of them have to move in together in one house. The idea of Adopt Elena is like these learners, university learners, who I have adopted through this foundation so that they can get higher education. Our trustees make decisions on who we can support. It's not a lot of money, so we don't take many students per year. But if we take you, we stay with you until you get a degree. We never drop students because they have failed. Fail or not, we stick it out with them until they get their degrees. Adopt Elena also funds the Mamokgethi Phakeng Award, which is at VETS. We introduced it at UCT as well. That's for the most outstanding masters women. They have to be African or colored, and they have to be getting a PhD in an area of mathematics, whether it's pure maths or applied mathematics. We're now talking to a third university where the award will be introduced. That's what Adopt Elena is about. Again, if you have a dream, you fund it yourself. You don't start a foundation and then expect other people to give you money for it. You work for the money that they can then contribute to your foundation. That's how it works.
What do you think are some of the pressing issues facing female students generally, not just at UCT? And what are some of the challenges facing women in South Africa?
The challenges facing women in South Africa, many of them are also faced by women students. First of all, how we are regarded in our society. And how we are regarded manifests the spread of gender-based violence. If how we were regarded as a woman was different, you wouldn't see the level of violence against women. It wouldn't be at the levels at which it is. We are regarded as a subordinate gender in this country. And so that is why many families, there's still families in this country who believe that it is better to invest in taking a boy child to school, but not a girl child to school. There are still many men who believe that women are subordinate, and if they marry them, the woman must be the one who serves them, not the other way around. There are many people in this country, dare I say, men and women, who believe that women can never provide good leadership, that they're emotionally not suitable to be leaders. And that comes from this perception that leadership has to be masculine, that the masculine way of being is the right way of being. That view, I call it the masculinity of power. It affects female students who get violated left, right, and center. It affects women leaders. It affects women professionals. It doesn't actually matter how educated you are, how well-spoken you are, how confident you are. It affects you because you will be called names if you hold your own and know who you are. If you don't, you will still be called names. You're not supposed to be too pretty. You're not supposed to be too confident. You're not supposed to be too highly achieved. You'll be body shamed, you'll be named, you'll be ridiculed, because it's easy to do that to a woman. A man can do the same thing, exactly the same thing. They will never be called that name. When a man is decisive, they are called a strong leader. When a woman is decisive, they are called something else. It's the world we live in. But those of us who are in the front line, who are breaking the path, must take the pain. Maybe one day it will be different.
Since being a Vice-Chancellor, what would you say has been your highlight so far?
When I became VC, there were only 3 deans out of 8 faculties. And I'm saying faculties, I'm adding the Graduate School of Business and the Center for Higher Education and Development. Only 3 substantially appointed. The rest were acting. Within a month of being in office, one of the 3 substantially appointed passed on. The other one resigned after an investigation. Only one was substantial, and that's the Dean of Engineering and the Built Environment. My highlight is not that within 2 years we managed to appoint the other people. It's who we have appointed. Within 2 years, the deanery at UCT has transformed to an extent where out of the 8, 5 of them are Black, and out of the 8, 4 of them are women. I think that's phenomenal. In the history of this university, since inception, they have never seen such a diverse team of deans. For the first time in the history of the university, women leadership. It's not celebrated as much as it should. I don't understand why, but it's a huge, huge achievement. That you have not only 4 of the 8 deans being women, but you have all the DVCs being women and the VC being women. I think it's key. What it says is that the bulk of the core business of the university is in the hands of women. Are we surprised that in 2019 we were leading in 5 of the leading international rankings, university rankings? It's not surprising. Again, it was the first time that the university was leading in all 5. For me, those are my highlights. There's still a lot of work to be done. Got to celebrate each day where we are able to do this work.
For more news, you can visit sabcnews.com or at SABC News on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. For SABC Digital News, I'm Lerato Mata.